G'day guys, welcome to another episode of the Beginner Series. I just wanted to do a bit of an update video today just to show you guys sort of where we're at the end of the first month of playing in the game. We just ticked over that a few days ago now, so let me get in and show you guys exactly what we've been up to since the last video, the little bit of PvE progression that we've got, as well as the next step that we're going to be looking at taking, getting into some PvP content. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is the PvE progression that we've made in Toa Hard here. Now we have managed to get up and clear the 70th stage so we can start collecting that Devilmon. Devilmon are an extremely valuable resource, and this should be a high priority for you guys, at least getting to the 70th floor so you can start collecting that extra Devilmon every rotation once you get the hard stage done as well. Now the team that I used here for this one was this team here. As you can see, we have finished the 2A of the Thrain. He's been a great help in Toa here. The CC that he provides, as well as the damage from the dots that he also provides, and he also pairs incredibly well with the Sath here, doubling the damage coming out of those dots. So you can see what I've done is I've basically put on the Vero set onto him and then swapped out this rune here just for a stronger one. We don't need the will set, so I went for some extra stats instead. And you can see here that he's only level 5 as well, so I haven't even bothered to 6-star him yet. He basically performs his role. As long as you can make him tanky enough that he can survive, there's no extra value out of making him 6-star. He doesn't do damage through the traditional means, so you don't really need that as long as you can survive. So because he was tanky enough, because most things here don't really take a turn too often between our Spectra pushback, also they're already attack broken if we land that as well, and then the Thrain with the CC, you don't really get hit too often, so this was completely fine. And then the strategy here is that the Thrain CCs everybody on the field, as well as provides those dots. With the final boss, when you're versing the Ciara, the Lauren will continually just push the Ciara back and it won't take a turn, so you don't need to worry about her too much. As long as you can CC the rest of the side mobs with the Thrain, you're good to go. Now the other thing we've managed to do is I got the final skill up into the skill 3 of my Bale, so he's now fully skilled as far as what we need from him with his damage, as well as the runes. I'm still looking for some upgrades in terms of some gems and grinds on some of these runes, but I've been slowly sort of working away at that, and it's slowly increasing his damage up. Now my Bale does hit for about 28k now with this specific setup, with the very high crit rate. Obviously if you drop some crit rate down and got some more crit damage and things like that, you could actually be hitting harder with this sort of set, but he's still hitting at 28k damage as is with this really high crit rate. So again, the Fatal Will set is completely fine on Bale. You do not need a rage set for your Bale. Because of this, I strongly recommend you just live in Giants, and that's exactly what we've been doing. So all I've been really doing is farming Giants and farming a little bit of R5 when I have time to sit there and sort of stare at my phone a little bit more. So only a little bit of that, honestly. I've been really just AFK farming, just Giants and this in the background, slowly collecting better and better runes, and we can start moving now into some PvP content and getting some builds together for our RTA monsters. Okay, so this is the RTA monster box that I'm slowly sort of starting to put together and try and bring it together so we've got some sort of like cohesion here with the team, as well as offer some threats and some issues there that our opponent's going to have some trouble dealing with. We're not looking to build a monster box that's going to carry us straight to Guardian. That's not going to be realistic with our rune quality, with our monster depth, or with our, honestly, the biggest problem right now is going to be a Devilmon shortage. I can't skill up all the Nat 5s that we've got. So because of that, we're just going to be looking to do a sort of a universal box that will deal with plenty of situations and get us enough wins that we can start to actually compete and potentially start pushing into the Conqueror ranges as soon as we can. Now, the first unit that I really want to focus on here for you guys is the Antares. Now, I pulled him out of the Choose Your Own Nat 4 Hall of Hero event that was recently on, knowing that I already had an Oliver, with Antares being a big counter to him. I want to be able to pair those two. So this is the strategy that we're going to start using in RTA. We're going to bring Oliver, our strongest unit, and then we're going to bring some of the counters to him so they don't get brought against us. And the number one counter that we're going to be facing is going to be the Antares. So the strategy that we're going to be employing here when we get into RTA is going to be an Oliver Antares team, and then a bit of protection for both of those, and then a little bit of flexibility and pivoting around depending on what else we need, depending on what our opponent brings. So as far as the rune set on the Antares usually goes on a Despair Revenge set. Now you can see here the stats stats on this here, this actually isn't too bad. This is pretty good. This isn't too far off of what my main account Antares is in terms of the amount of HP. It's got a fair amount less attack than what my main does, and then a little bit less accuracy and a little bit less crit rate, but that doesn't really matter. As far as an Antares goes, this is actually a pretty decent one, considering we've only been playing the game for about a month or so. The reason and the why I've been able to get those extra little bit of stats on him is because we've forsaken the revenge set. I do not have good revenge runes, but because we're farming giants, I have good enough energy runes. So we've actually put him on a despair energy build just to buff out those extra few little bits of stats that we're going to be looking for here. And in return, we're sacrificing a little bit of RNG because we don't get the revenge. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, but for me in this early stage of the game, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking for as many stats as possible instead of trying to go for the super premium sets all the time. Now, the runes here, you can see that these aren't quite finished yet. We're still missing some gems and some grinds on all of these runes as well. This one here in particular, no grinds at all. This one here has got a very low gem with a grind, so that could be upgraded. This one here is already pretty good. This one here, again, no gem or not fully grinded once we gem out one of these stats. And then this one here, honestly, this one's like not even that good of a rune, but it's still okay. And like I said, just to fill out. So this one here will either be looking to gem out the speed for attack percent, or we'll be looking for just a straight upgrade. Like I said, this is an energy rune now, so it's going to be easy for us to get a replacement of any rune that's going to offer more value and more stats down the track. Now, we haven't even quite maxed all these out yet as well. I'm just kind of waiting because we might get an upgrade in between now and when we actually start to play. So we're going to hold off on just maxing these out just for now. But when we do get into RTA, before we do our first match, I'm going to have as many of these runes plus 15s as possible, as long as we have the mana to do so we can give ourselves the best chance to go as far as we can straight away. Now, the other unit that we're going to be using obviously is going to be the Oliver. He is the strongest unit in RTA right now, despite the fact he just got nerfed. He's still an incredibly powerful unit. His skill kit is still just as insane with the turn cycling control that he offers, as well as this 33 speed lead. This is really going to help us out early on because we don't have our towers maxed, we don't have the good enough rune quality, so this 33% speed buff to our entire team is going to be extremely powerful for us. Now, we have managed to get him onto a violent energy set here. These are the runes. I don't know where all of these have come from. The energy runes obviously have come from farming giants. The violent runes, some of these were the ones given to us for the Vero set. Some of them I think I might have picked up, I don't know, out of events or things like that. Like, they're just random ones that we've collected over the time. They're okay. Again, a lot of these we still haven't fully gemmed or grinded all of these as well, so there still is some upgrades onto this set as well. Even these energy runes still need some upgrading, but he's looking okay. He's not 6-starred yet either, so a lot of these stats will go up. We don't have artifacts on him yet either, so but he's all right. You know, he's a bit of a bruisery build. He's got a good amount of HP, a decent, you know, he's got some attack. I wouldn't say a decent amount, but he's got some attack. Speed, we can get a little bit more on this and push him up towards the 245, 250 range once we get everything fully grinded with our speed. And then we have got good accuracy on him as well. So he is going to be reliable enough, especially in these lower ranks, with his skill 3, skill 2 cooldowns and rotations. Basically, because he's going to be our first picked unit, he took the absolute priority for me in terms of getting the best violent set that we can possibly get on him, which is like I said, going to be good enough for us just to get started. As you can see here with both of the Antares and the Oliver here, both of them are not on will. This is going to be a problem for us because we don't have will runes necessarily. I have a few that we've collected just here and there, a bit out of labs, some out of the shops, some that they got given to us. So we have some will runes, but they're not very good and they're not worth trying to get them on our units because we have to sacrifice so many stats because their quality is just so low compared to the rest of our runes now. Because of that, the strategy we're going to employ is we're actually going to build probably 2 immunity units that can potentially sort of put that immunity on for us just to offer us that protection. So the first one we have here is going to be the Fran. I've just put this on a Swift set as well because again, I don't have the violent runes now available, and just for speed tuning purposes, I do want the Fran moving early on so we can try try and get that protection on as soon as possible, as well as offer the cleanse, so if it can move before my team, so if it needs to cleanse anything off, it can do so, and then just allow the team to sort of do what it's supposed to do. So we have opted for the Swift set because of that, but what that allows me to do then is run at a reasonably high speed and still be somewhat tanky as well. So she's on a speed HP. You can see that this one here isn't even fully maxed yet. Again, I'm just waiting to see. Once we actually start, then I'll finalize the builds. This is kind of just starting to put some sets together now. This doesn't mean that we're not going to be upgrading these before we actually start. Now, the other option here we're going to have for the immunity is going to be the Lulu. So this is going to be one of my next 2A targets. I'm just finishing off the Crow so we can start getting into some Rift Beasts a little easier, so we can start collecting some reaps. But then once that's done, I will be moving on and 2Aing Lulu. Lulu is going to be one of the biggest counters to me, with the Antares and the Oliver. Both are reasonably hard countered by Lulu, with the immunity stopping Oliver from doing its cooldowns, and the big healing, as well as this sort of a water support unit into the Antares. So Lulu will probably be incorporated into my team, and maybe one of the early picks. So we'll have to do some testing once we get started, but the first 3 picks we're kind of leaning towards here is going to be the Oliver, the Antares, and the Lulu. This offers us control, it offers us damage, and it offers us immunity and protection with the Lulu here, as well as having one of sort of each color. It sort of doesn't give too much of our draft away. And not that we really have a draft to give away, we're so limited with our monster box here, but those 3 have got really good sort of cohesion together. They all support each other, as well as they're all sort of direct counters to each other and to the Oliver in particular. So this is probably the first 3 that we're going to go, taking away some of our force bands or some of the units that we're not going to have a very easy time beating, and then incorporating them into our team so they support us rather than become a hindrance to us. Now, the other couple of units here we'll probably be using is the Lauren. I did manage to get Lauren onto a wheel set because I picked up this wheel rune. Actually, this was out of the shop. It double rolled into speed, gave me 17 speed. This is a perfect rune, especially for early game. This is going to be really strong. We'll probably gem out the crit rate here for some attack percent or defense percent, and then fully grind this out as well, and it will actually become a very good rune for me early on. And because of that, we then were able to get the Lauren onto a wheel set. So you can see here the tuning is Lauren's going to move after the Fran, so the Fran there can cleanse or put the immunity back on Lauren just in case a stripper or something goes in front of her, but the Lauren will be here to act as our stripper for us in the team. She'll strip a setup for the Oliver to do a reset. She'll also then have the defense breakout, so if the Antares procs, he's an attack buffed Antares with a now defense broken unit to hit, so this will be a great way for us to try and take out some units. The next unit that I really wanted to talk about and to show you guys is the Ethna. We can use this in a similar way as the Lauren. It's a single target strip. This one is actually an AoE defense breaker as well as some turn rotation, and has an incredibly high base speed. So this is what I was saying earlier on about one of the first goals and first targets in terms of farming giants that you're looking to get to is building yourself a 300 speed unit. Now you can see here we've actually already done it. So we're about a month into the game, we've already got a 300 speed unit up and running. Now we are abusing base speed, but there are plenty of units that you can use to do this. If you don't have an Ethna, a Sekhmet would be great. A Triton is also really good for this role, but a more free-to-play option if you pull one. We haven't yet because, you know, we're still incredibly early game, but if you've played for a little bit longer, you will eventually get an Ashir, which is the light werewolf. He has a slightly lower base speed than Ethna, but he's a team booster, so he'll actually boost your entire team up. So she's probably not as good in terms of a first turn unit for your overall team, but we don't have an Ashir. This is what we've got. We're going to use what we have, and she's going to be our speed threat. And whenever we're wanting to compete speed, this is what we're going to be bringing. Now, the runes that we've got on her is obviously it's on a speed slot 2. We've gone for the crit rate slot 4 here because it's one of my fastest slot 4 runes, as well as Ethna turn cycles based on her crits with her skill 2. So you do want to build her on a high crit rate build, and then just an attack rune here. So you can see here, this rune here is actually like really bad, so this is why I haven't plussed it yet, because we're kind of looking for an upgrade on this one. But these are the 2 triple speed swift runes that I pulled early on in the game. You can see here they're not quite maxed out with speed either. They can get one more speed grind on each of these. That one's already a +4. This one's already a +4. This was a 19 triple roll, so kind of a low triple roll, but still a triple. And then this one here's only got a +2 on it. So just with hero grinds, we could actually get an extra 4 speed on this, and then that would put her up to 304 speed total with just this set right now. But like I said, we're kind of going to be looking for some upgrades on that slot 6, or if we don't, in the meantime, we'll be running this. Now, the reason I've held off on 6-starring her as well is because of just the Devilmon problem. We're going to be Devilmoning Oliver next, so she's going to sort of take a back seat until that's done. And what we might do, instead of using Ethna before she's fully skilled, if we haven't got the Devilmon ready by the time we're looking to get into RTA, I'll move this set over to the Verd here, and we'll run a Swift Verd. Like I said, it's because the set's going to be basically interchangeable. We won't then be as fast, but it'll offer us another fire unit, which is going to be good when we're bringing Oliver, as well as give us some really good turn rotation. So we've kind of got a set there that we can be a little bit flexible with the high crit rate build, and we'll move that around depending on what we need and depending on where our Devilmon situation is at. The other 2 units we have here is Tail. This is one that I Devilmoned early on. I kind of regret doing this now. I wish I had these Devilmon available to put into Oliver instead, but we may as well use him. And we just put him on a Swift Blade set as well. Again, it'll just do. It'll get the job done. If we're going to be first picking Oliver, we are going to get in the situation where Antares is going to get stolen from us sometimes. So we then do want to have something there to counter the Antares when it gets stolen away from us. So the Tail is going to fill that role for me, being the freeze with his skill 3, as well as some CC pushback on the rest, as well as then big damage out of his skill 2 to try and take out that Antares as soon as possible, and then hopefully the Oliver will be okay and we can keep sort of going from there. The only other unit we have here is the Khaki. Now I've just put him on I kind of started putting a set together, just on a Fatal Energy set. We've just got some like sort of leftover runes. What we're going to be doing here is having a combination of Swift units, Despair units, and then some Fatal units as well on our damage dealers, just so we have a few extra units that are going to be runed with reasonable quality. The drop off is going to be really, really fast for us. We do not have rune depth on this account yet at all, let alone even completed sets. But we do have a few sets sort of starting to come together that are going to be good enough. And then if we can use some of the less desirable, like I said, the fatal sets and things like that on our damage dealers, well then we can just rune up some extra units that have got enough stats that they can actually compete and not just get completely crushed because they don't have any HP, or they just can't do their job because they don't have the stat requirements to fulfill their role. Because of that, we're using these other sets. Again, this is why farming in Giants is like one of the best ways to speed progress through both early game into mid game and then even into really late game, because you're collecting multiple sets at the same time. Whereas when you farm dragons, the only set that you're looking for there in terms of a 4 set is going to be violent runes, and then in Necro, in terms of PvP, you can use rage runes the same way that I'm using fatal runes, but they're still not ideal. So all you're really collecting in Necro is just your will offset, which is really valuable, both of those, don't get me wrong, but for now, while we don't have anything, we don't have any sets, we may as well start collecting in a place that is giving us multiple sets at the same time. It's just more efficient in terms of getting those sets and getting those units built and up and running, and then we can always transition and upgrade to the violent sets on the units that we want violent on, like our Fran and Lauren. We'll just transition to that later on, but for now, to get into there as soon as possible, this is what we're doing. We're going for stats above sets, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with using some Swift sets and using some Fatal, and definitely Despair. Despair is incredibly strong in RTA right now. It's kind of like a budget version of Violent. Instead of getting an extra turn, when you proc, you're taking a turn away. So it's still giving you that +1 in terms of a turn advantage over your opponent, but just doing it in a slightly different manner. Okay, we got a few little summons here. Let's just quickly do these, see if we get anything at all. Legendary Scroll, what do we get? Need that at all, so yeah, nothing really. So yeah, we'll just keep summoning, keep looking for skill ups on some of the 4 stars we already have, keep looking for new nat 5s, hopefully we get some more of those, and we'll just keep progressing through the game. And just like I said earlier, all we're really doing right now is I'm just farming farming giants, farming R5 when I can. That's it. We're just trying to complete the runes and upgrade the runes that we already have, as well as keep looking for those upgrades in the specific slots that we need. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for me today. Just want to give you guys this quick update on sort of where we're at, as well as the general direction that we're going to be heading in, which is going to be moving into PvP RTA as soon as possible. So the next video, hopefully we've got the team fully 6-starred and runed and mainly grinded and gemmed at least, with artifacts on everybody, and we'll actually be able to get in and start doing some matches, and I'll show you guys sort of how you can sort of start building your monster box and your team and go from there. So thanks very much for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next one.